Welcome to You, Me in the Counselling World, the podcast dedicated to student counsellors and their road to getting qualified and beyond. Today it's episode 5 and I'm going to talk to you today about the route I took to becoming a counsellor and later a supervisor. Hi everyone, here we are back for episode 5. I hope you've all had a lovely week and it's been wet. It's been really wet out there and I'm looking out the window at the moment and it's still raining, and so hopefully this week is due to get a little bit better. There you go, it's unlike me to start a podcast talking about the weather, but today it feels as if it's quite relevant in some way, and I hope where you've been you've had better weather than I've had here. Anyway, today I wanted to talk to you all about my route to becoming a counsellor. This is something that's been requested a few times actually on social media. People are asking me, well, how did you do that? How did you find your route into this as a profession? And were you already experienced in working in this way, or have you already done something like this before? So there were lots of questions that were coming out, and I thought that actually it's a really good opportunity for me to talk a bit about myself and for you to get to know me a little bit, I guess, which I always think is quite nice. So welcome back to episode 5. It is great to have you alongside, and don't forget to hit follow. Don't forget to follow me everywhere you can follow, because I'm just so keen to get this out and about into the world. It just feels really important. And I have to say, I'm so enjoying making these podcasts. I look forward to sitting down and chatting with you all, and I really love interacting with you afterwards. So please do get in touch and, you know, like I say, drop me a line or find me on Facebook. It would be really lovely to hear from you. So without further ado, perhaps I'm going to talk a little bit now about me, which is alien, but something which feels important to talk about how I ended up here in the first place and how I now find myself sitting here talking to all of you. So my journey into becoming a counsellor started quite a long time ago, probably about 13 or so years ago, I reckon. And my passion always lied with actually other people and helping other people, and in all the work I've ever done previously I've always found a way into training people and developing them and helping them to grow, and when they're starting out helping to sort of nourish them. And I've always been interested in that, you know, all the way through my various careers. None of the work that I was doing was relating to the counselling world in any way, shape or form. I was working lots in sales and in customer services and in manufacturing. So I had lots of different and varied kind of skill sets. But fundamentally, every role that I'd done always seemed to be about helping people start and helping them into their progression, I suppose. And I really loved that. I loved doing the training. And I really loved helping to make that process a little bit easier. But none of this was emotional work. This was all about teaching people how to use the systems in the workplace and, you know, how to do the job well. That was kind of what I was about. And in every job, I somehow just ended up falling into that role quite naturally, and something that I really enjoyed. And that was always a big aspect of it for me, was the training side. Something that I completely and utterly loved doing. It was just so rewarding, and I just enjoyed that in every aspect, really. I guess I'd wanted to do something different, and counselling for me was always on my list in my head. You know, we have a list of things that we would quite like to do, and I was aware that actually I wanted to get to a place where I could eventually be self-employed. I'd been made redundant, and there were various things in one of the companies I was working for where it felt to me like there was lots of hidden meetings, hidden things behind the scenes going on, and there was a lot of different redundancy talks and lots of restructures. And I found that to be a really difficult time, not knowing how secure I was in my work, not knowing whether I would be, you know, made redundant, and seeing my colleagues around me being made redundant. And actually really having a strong sense of, I don't want to feel this way anymore. I don't want this. So I started to look into training. For me, it felt quite natural. I want to work with people. I enjoy working with people. I enjoy nurturing. I enjoy helping them to grow. And so actually, although it was completely different to anything that I've done in terms of my work, there were also similarities. The similarities being, supporting and being there side by side with somebody, I suppose. So I looked into various courses and various routes into counselling. And for me, because I didn't really have any experience that was, I guess, useful, although my life experience was useful, it felt as if I needed to sort of start from the beginning. So I enrolled in a level 2 course, and it was lovely. It was in a beautiful old building in Totnes in Devon, and it was run through an adult education centre, and it was about a 10-week course, and it was really interesting, but it was very psychodynamic heavy, so a lot of it was around psychodynamic counselling, which I was absolutely fascinated by. It was the most fascinating subject to me, and I met some wonderful people on that course. Despite it being really hard to fit in sometimes around work and having to travel, come home and go straight back out again to go to work, to go to the course, it was tough at times. I really loved it, and I looked forward to going every week. I was like, yes, this is what I want to do. This is for me. And I was fascinated by the psychodynamic elements of it. So I really enjoyed learning some of the skills. I really enjoyed learning some theories and starting to understand as to whether or not this was for me. And that was a big part of me doing the level 2. For me, it was about seeing, well, would I even enjoy this? Would it be something that even interests me? I guess I wanted to understand more about what it could be like. So that level 2 was really a pivotal moment, because if I hadn't have enjoyed the course, or it hadn't felt like it was something I wanted to do as a long-term career, I don't think I would have carried on. But actually, it really felt as if it was feeding me, and it really felt as if I was learning so much about myself and about other people. It was so much the foundation of my road to getting there, if that makes sense. It was such a big part of it. And it was, a really fascinating process that I just immensely enjoyed. And I never really wanted it to end. I enjoyed the level 2 course so much and found it to be enlightening in so many different ways that I knew that I wanted to carry on, and I knew that this subject was just so interesting to me. And the subject of counselling never felt dry. It never felt boring. Even reading books and understanding about the modalities and the ethics and all of the technicalities behind the scenes, none of that felt dry and boring to me. It just felt interesting, and it sparked some enthusiasm within me. And that's something I hadn't felt at this point for a long time. So to have something that I was really enthusiastic about doing felt like it was just a magical moment for me to realise that, and very, very special. So I'll always be forever grateful to that level 2 course. I'm so pleased that I had taken the leap to do that, and I put myself out a bit. It was a good drive from where I live. It wasn't just down the road. It was a decent chunk of time to get there. It was in the evening time, and there was many times at the beginning of this that I felt like I wanted to talk myself out of it, because it felt like a really big kind of undertaking for me to do this amongst everything else. But there was something that led me there, and I think it was the feeling of, I want to know whether this is a possibility for me for the future. I want to know whether this could be a career that I will follow, or whether it's not for me at all, and maybe I'll step away at that point. But there was too many question marks for me to just leave it and drop it. Level 2 could have gone one of two ways. It could have gone the way that it did, or it could have gone the other way, and I could have thought, no, this is not for me. So it was pivotal, it was really interesting, and I learned so much through that. It was just an amazing part of my training altogether. It was just a lovely place, and with the most lovely tutor and a lovely bunch of people. I enjoyed it immensely, and I still look back on it really fondly, actually. So I completed my level 2 course, passed it, got the certificate, And then I thought, well, what's the next step? At this point, I knew that probably I needed to look at the level 3, and that wasn't running in the place in Totnes where I had done this training. So then I was on the hunt for this level 3 course. Where will I do this? And when you're looking at counselling training courses, it's really difficult sometimes. It's really difficult to find what you're looking for, because you want to feel supported. You want to feel as if you can learn lots about you, but also learn lots about the process and lots about the theory and the modalities and everything else that's going on. So about finding those courses was actually really difficult in the area that I live. But I did find another course, and it was through South Devon College. This was an NCFE course, and it was longer than the level 2. And it was so different. It was polar opposite in a way, because the level 3 course it felt like it was so much more classroom based, whereas the level 2 had felt so sort of experiential and being there together and much more sort of casual. And level 3, I went into that in a sense of it feeling very classroomy. You know, there was whiteboards, and we were all sat at tables and chairs, and it felt like a classroom setting. So for me, it instantly felt not so welcoming as the level 2, not so comfortable to be there. And I found that with the tutor that was teaching it was actually, I had quite a difficult relationship with her at times, and it actually sometimes felt to be quite difficult to kind of get into the nitty-gritty of it with her. And I'm not sure whether there was just a personality clash or something, but I never felt like she completely got me. She was a really lovely lady, a really lovely tutor, but she was very harsh, and I think that I'd had, issues. I didn't feel particularly confident at this time, and to go into this, it felt like a really big thing. So I saw the level 3 as a real stepping stone between level 2 and level 4. For me, it was a necessity, because I wanted to go into a level 4 kind of interview feeling as if I'd done everything that I needed to do and feeling like I was ready for it. And of course, there's an argument to say that if you've had lots of work experience and you've worked in a similar setting, or you've used listening skills before in work, or you've been used to supporting people, then of course there's an argument to say that some level 4 courses may well accept you without having done a level 2 and level 3. Some won't, but some will. So it's about being able to demonstrate that for them, demonstrate your skill level and your level of experience, I suppose. But for me, I felt like I was at the very beginning. And I was at the very beginning, It was a really kind of strange time that I was embarking on this, and it was just so new, and it felt like it was worlds apart from anything that I'd done before. South Devon College course ran, and I completed what I needed to complete. I didn't enjoy it in the same way as I did the level 2, and it's not because the level 3 course is rubbish, or it's not because the level 3 course is not good enough. It's none of those things. I just think I went from a really experiential feeling of a course where it felt welcoming and nurturing to a very clinical classroom type setting. And sometimes I wonder with counselling courses whether they need to be as experiential as they can be. And I know that learning has to happen, and I know that whiteboards and things are a necessity in that. You've got to be able to demonstrate something. Yeah, it was quite a challenge, and not because I wasn't able to do it, but because it actually felt like sometimes it took away from what we were trying to learn. But we did lots of sort of skills practice, so we did lots of things around that in trying to practice skills and learn them, and we worked lots, as I say, in the triads together, and that felt, good. I used to enjoy skills practice. I knew that although the course wasn't floating my boat in the same way as the level 2, I still knew that when I was working with peers and things, that this was something I really wanted to do. I didn't feel confident in what I could bring into this counselling world. I didn't feel confident at all. But it felt like it was right. And so I threw everything, I threw my all really into level 3. And I got the qualification, and then I was at the point of like, this is the scary moment now. What on earth do I do moving forward? I live in a place where there aren't loads of courses to choose from, and I knew that this course had to fit into the rest of my world to make this work. I knew that it needed to be at a time when it would fit in, and so I decided that I would do a weekend course. And I chose to do an advanced diploma in integrative counselling, and this was at the Dartmoor Centre for Counselling and Psychotherapy. So this was a really beautiful place, a lovely house. It was a house, a family home. It was run by a lovely couple of tutors. They were, absolutely amazing. I'm still extremely fond of both of them. And they gave us all this hugely experiential course, and it was exactly what I needed. It was homely, it was cosy. We sat on big sort of armchairs with blankets and sofas, and we had a beautiful kitchen where we could all kind of get together at break time and sit and eat and talk together. And it felt like I'd entered into a family. And I think that is exactly what made this course so special for me. It was intense. The days were really exhausting. I mean, so tiring, because you're thinking a lot, you're learning a lot, you're practicing skills an awful lot in that time. And so you're having to be emotionally kind of alert and thinking about things. You needed to write about certain things, which was lovely. And for me, it enabled me to have some freedom in what I wanted to say and how I wanted to explore things for myself. And although I still had to prove myself in the sense that I had to do the work, I really enjoyed that. And a big part of the coursework and things was journaling. So using your journal to write about yourself and write about your experiences and your relationships, and your family and everything else felt to be really useful. It really kind of underpinned for me what I was learning on the course, how I was developing. And I noticed that throughout this time, the nurturing and the positive kind of lift that I would get from being there was huge. As I said, I was exhausted at times. It was absolutely so tiring. But at the same time, I felt fulfilled in what I was doing. And I would come home on a Sunday evening and literally be wiped out, because I was so full of stuff, full of everything that I'd learnt and everything that we talked about. And I was able to begin to process that through the week. But it was the fullness that felt like I was really developing as a person, but I was also developing as a counsellor, and my skills were being kind of honed as time went on. I was learning more and more and more about being relational and about being ethical and working with people and being in it with them, and empathy and all of the other amazing parts of the work that we bring today. It felt as if I was able to do all of those things and pull it all together. And there were times when I still felt underconfident, and there were times when I dreaded skills practice because I didn't want to do it and I didn't want the feedback. And sometimes that would be super tough, to sit there and actually have to listen to somebody and work through their stuff and then hear the feedback afterwards of, what the observer was thinking and what they felt that you could do differently or better or worse or whatever it might be. There's a real sense of pressure in that. And there were times when I really didn't want to do skills practice. I didn't enjoy that at times. But at the same time, I had a real sense that I'm finding this difficult because it's with people that I already know. I have gone as an observer. I've got to sort of really prove myself. And actually, in reality, when I start doing this for real with clients, I just know that some of that pressure will be taken away. And I was really looking forward to getting onto a placement and being able to use these skills in reality with somebody for real, rather than it being something in a triad, which, although we'd use our own real material, it wasn't a role play in triads, it still felt as if I talked a lot about myself already and other people had already talked about themselves already. And to actually know that I can sit and be with another person on a placement as a client and counsellor relationship felt like that was really important. I think I spoke in my last podcast about placements and about how sometimes it felt really competitive, and this feels like a really good time to just sort of check in on that again, because the level 2 part, the year 2 part of the level 4 course, I'll get my words right in a minute, was obviously a lot taken up in placement. And I remember that huge sense of, oh, everybody else is getting sorted, everybody else is finding a placement to be on. But I was still working, and I was really struggling to find a time when I could give as much as required for a placement to take place. So it was a real struggle sometimes to be able to find that time to make it happen. And I was really, really super lucky that I was given a placement via the course, because the course itself was in the process of setting up an agency, an affordable counselling agency. And I was actually one of the very first counsellors to work under that as a placement, and it meant that I could choose which hours I worked. I just chose to work, an evening or two here and there. And it meant that I was able to very slowly build up my client hours. And it was quite slow, it was quite hard going, because I didn't have days that I could give to this. I was still trying to hold down my job at the same time. So for me, it was about having to find a way for this to fit into my life, because otherwise I didn't know how sustainable it would be. So I feel immensely lucky that I was given that as an opportunity to work with people, and that my tutors trusted me with that and, saw in me something that would enable me to work with clients. And I was able to very carefully work through my placement hours, and I was well supported, and we had group supervision and lots of things like that were happening. And I began to find my stride, actually. I began to find my own style, my own way of being with clients. I began to learn about endings. I began to learn about juggling everything and, juggling my diary. Simple things like that I began to really develop in. And my skills would grow because I was able to use them in a really real way. So I feel as if everything that I learnt in level 2, level 3 and the first year of level 4, they were all kind of brought together in the second year of the diploma course. So they were brought together in a way that enabled me to do it, to absolutely go and do this and use it and be able to sit with somebody, even if they're distressed, even if they're upset, still sit with them and be with them in it. So the course itself was, as I said, very experiential, and it was a mixture of modalities because it's integrative. We were supposed to be working through all of these different things to create our own kind of, I think they said it's like a synthesis, a counselling synthesis, which enables us to choose our own parts of these different modalities, the things that stand out to us, and there's things that won't do. I really enjoyed the very relational counselling, and then I also enjoyed the cognitive behavioural therapy, so I would interlace parts of CBT into my person-centred therapy, and began to build something that felt like it really fitted with me. It was me, and I think I speak a lot about that on this podcast too. It's about finding what works for you as a person, because it's you that's sitting there with clients making this happen. And because you're the person that's there in the room with the client, they're doing a lot of the work, of course they are, but we are facilitating that, aren't we? And we're helping them and helping them to explore. And I just found ways to facilitate that work using the things that sort of spoke to me. And CBT was one of the things that really spoke to me, but I knew I didn't want to do it as a purist. I didn't want to be a pure CBT person. And my course tutor, one of them, was really amazing teacher of Santre, and it meant that we were able to do lots of Santre training within our diploma, which I'm so grateful for, because even to this day I still use the skills that I learned through Santre. Sometimes, although I might not use it with the sand, just the objects and being able to move things around, I find that to be so powerful and so useful. So I was really pleased that I was on an integrative course that meant that I could pick up skills and pick up different things and then drop other parts of it, bits that didn't quite resonate with me or bits I didn't feel comfortable with. I was able to put to one side and say, that's not for me at this time. But I began to build a way of being with clients that just worked for me. As this course progressed, it got closer to the exams, and for this particular course, because there wasn't the criteria throughout that you were having to tick off, it meant that we had to do what's called a Viva exam. And this was an exam that was done with an external examiner who came in, and we had to record with a client, obviously with permission, a tape that this examiner would listen to with us, and he would then ask us questions in a very kind of practical way. And let me tell you that this was absolutely terrifying. It was such a scary process to go into these Viva exams. You know, you'd already submitted all of your work, all of your essays, all of the kind of the about me kind of assignments. You'd done presentations, you know, we'd done all of this stuff throughout the 2 years. All of a sudden, we'd reached the end of our placement hours, and it was kind of all pulled together into this Viva exam, which it was just so scary. Scary, but amazing at the same time, because I was able to sit in the room and hold my own with actually a very, he was quite a, direct examiner. He was very direct. He was quite harsh, actually, in some of his wording and some of the way that he was. He was a very demanding. He had lots of a high benchmark, I suppose. And I managed to sort of hold my own with him and came out with an amazing kind of feedback. And, you know, with the qualification, I came out with the qualification. And I always remember the most amazing moment where I walked down the stairs after finding out that I'd passed, and one of my tutors was at the bottom of the stairs. And I remember just how proud he was. And it was just the most amazing moment where I was able to say, I did it. I did it in that moment. I did this. And he was proud and so encouraging and so kind of complimentary. I feel as if that fed me even more, and I was able to go out into the world suddenly a qualified counsellor. And for all of you that are training right now, it is the most amazing time when you can say, I'm qualified, I am a qualified counsellor now. It feels like the most, I can't even describe it. It's just incredible to know that you've come so far. And I was really able to sort of celebrate how far I'd come and that I did it, you know, I'd achieved this. And it blew me away, and it still does to this day. It blows me away that actually I'm in this situation where I'm working with clients and I feel so honoured to be with them, so honoured by what they bring. I think that's the real kind of raw and honest bit of me that just knows that it is an honour. It's an absolute honour to sit in that counsellor chair and to work with people. And I feel absolutely so lucky to be in that position. So that gives you a little bit of a background as to how I ended up here in the first place. And the supervision thing came a little bit further on down the line. I worked very hard in my own supervision. I had group supervision, and then I've also had individual supervision. And there was so much development that happened for me after the course had finished, and I was then, you know, in a situation where I was beginning to want to build up work with clients and eventually, you know, go into private practice. For me, a lot of my development moving forward took place in supervision. It was such a rich environment for me. I knew all of the time, even when I just stepped out of my level 4, I knew that one day I wanted to be a supervisor and I wanted to help and nourish other people in that way. But I did not feel confident enough in my ability for a really long time, you know, quite a few years before I felt as if I was confident enough to say, actually, I think I can do this. I think I can be a supervisor. And when the time came where it suddenly started to creep into my mind, this sense of, I could do that, actually. I love supporting people. I love that colleague-to-colleague kind of interaction with people. I thought to myself, I could do that. I could actually take it on board. But I was so frightened of the responsibility of it that sometimes I talked myself out of even inquiring about a course. And then one day, my tutor, one of the tutors that I undertook the course, the level 4 with, was running a supervision diploma. And I saw the details of it. And I looked at the sort of, again, the experiential side, and I knew that it felt like it was just what I needed. And I hadn't really spent any time or seen this tutor for a good number of years, probably nine or so years by this point, perhaps. It had been a really long time since I'd finished, and I was in this situation where I was saying, I think I'm ready. Together, he sort of coached me through this idea of, yeah, you are ready. You're ready to become a supervisor. And I remember sitting down with him for sort of an informal chat before the course began, letting him know and saying, I just don't know how confident I am. I feel like I've really developed and I've really, moved forward, and I feel like I'm good at this, but I still don't know. I don't know. And he was so encouraging, and he really helped me along my way into this course. And I entered into the supervision training with the most amazing bunch of colleagues who I still see and still am friends with to this day. I very quickly realised that this is something I really enjoy. I love supervision. I've got so much kind of energy about supervision. It energises me, and I loved that. And so I did a whole diploma in it, and I spent that time training and doing the diploma. And it was a course that I can tell you I never wanted to end. Yes, we had to do a portfolio, yes, there were essays and all of that, and I had to fit that amongst my clients and everything else that I've got going on. But my gosh, it was amazing. It was the most amazing experience, and I enjoyed it immensely. It was the most amazing course. I would 100% recommend to anybody that's an experienced counsellor that wants to get into supervision to look at doing a diploma course that just helps to give you the grounding, helps to give you something, some structure to follow. Because I found that to be just so helpful, and I think I was ready for a long time before I felt ready, if that makes sense. In more recent times, I've also been offering supervision, and I absolutely love it. It's great. I enjoy every aspect of supervision, and I think it's developed me as a counsellor even further. I think it's really helped to change and mould things for me. I'm so grateful for the process, really. I'm so grateful the supervision exists, if that makes sense. So I hope that some of this was helpful to you today, and I hope that this helped to answer some of those questions that people had. And if there are any more questions, please let me know. I'm more than happy to answer anything that you need, really. It feels as if there's so much I can say. I feel like I could probably talk for another 20 minutes on this, but I won't, because it feels important I keep it concise so that you're ready to listen without taking up half your day. There you are. I'm hoping that helps you to get to know me a little bit more. And I just want to say a massive thank you to you all for the support that you're giving me as well, because without you all, this would not be a worthwhile journey. And this is so worthwhile. I absolutely love doing this podcast. I love hearing from you all on Facebook. And so come over and follow me. The details will be in the show notes at the bottom. Thank you for everyone that's listening, and thank you for everyone that's been so kind enough to share this podcast. I can't even tell you how grateful I am, and to see the numbers going up and how many downloads we're now receiving is just amazing. So a massive thank you to you all. Keep up the good work that you're all doing, and I will so look forward to speaking to you again next week. Take care. Bye bye.